Hello, good morning. I am Malika Dixon, and I am giving this. Good morning. This is Malika Dixon, and I am initiating our CYOC Screenwriting live stream class to get started. And I was planning on waiting a few moments for people to jump on, so I will give it a few minutes. So while I'm waiting, I'll introduce myself a little further. I am an independent screenwriter, an independent producer, an independent director here in Los Angeles. I am the creative who became the executive. I moved out here to LA back in 2005, and I had a lot of screenplays that I wanted to get produced. However, I was told by most executives who loved my screenplays that they would prefer to change the main characters. Long story short, the diverse characters that I created were not mainstream enough. And so I decided to greenlight my own projects and became a producer. And if you are following me on social media, you will probably see lots of trailers that I've posted for Chrysalis, which is the web series that I wrote to serve as a preface to a feature film called Chrysalis. And you can watch Chrysalis, the web series, on my YouTube channel at Dixon Productions TV. And you can see all the interesting character dynamics with regard to diverse characters, meaning African American, meaning Muslim. And the storyline is very similar to the crime series The Wire. And being from Baltimore, there's a lot of authentic Baltimore culture in that storyline. If you are a fan of The Wire, then you'll probably be a fan of Chrysalis. So welcome to my first ever live stream, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about developing your screenplays. And I got a very large turnout with regard to the survey that I sent out. So I'm really excited. And based on your surveys, most of your needs revolve around developing your characters, building action, learning story devices, and tightening up your screenplay. And I really believe most of you would benefit from some one-on-one feedback with regard to your specific projects. And this live stream is intended to give you some basics and invite you to seek out some consultation, because I'm very passionate about story, and I want your story to be the best that it can be. I'm a fan of storytelling, whether it's my stories, whether it's someone else's stories. And I'm actually a producer for other people. I've produced several other projects for other writers, and I've helped them develop their scripts as well. So this is exciting for me because I love story and I love helping people, and I'm an educator. My first career as a mom was very eventful, and now that my children are adults, I'm now moving into developing my career as a producer. And so here I am. Welcome to my live stream. Yes, and like I said before, I am an educator. I've been teaching for over 20 years. I started off teaching children and young adults, and now I'm venturing into teaching adults, which I love as well. So I want to start off with answering most of the questions on your surveys. A lot of you answered many of the questions leading to developing characters, which is great because your characters are the crux of your storyline. However, I want to add that the actions that your characters perform, the choices that they make, are what gives your audience a clue as to who they are, and they also drive your story. So that's also the interconnection between characters and story and action. And story elements also help you layer your story as the story progresses. So welcome. Let's start off with developing characters. If you are a member of CYOC 2016, I have a group on Facebook where I've given lots of advice and support with scripts. And last week, Talkback Tuesday, we ventured into character development. And then for our weekly broadcast on Periscope, I talked more in depth about 3 things that will help you develop your characters. And it was just a quick and dirty tip list. So today I'm going to give you a little bit more and expand on that. And I'm also going to give you the free character questionnaire, the character interview that I have that will help you layer your characters, that will help you tease out their backstory, that will help you write action that is very specific to the kind of character that you're writing for. Like I said, the choices that your character makes gives the audience clues as to who they are, and more importantly, moves the story forward. So the first thing we're going to talk about is characters. Now, I do have a handbook that I created for CYOC, and that's what I'm going to be pulling from. So if you've taken my course before, you've gotten one of these, and in it is a lot of information, a lot of resources, but if you need some one-on-one advice on how to use those resources, I'm making myself available to everyone who is plugged into this live stream. And there are only 40 people that I've sent this link out to, so you are a very exclusive group of people that I'm giving you me. You all are entitled to 15 minutes of free consultation, so you have my email. You can schedule a day and a time where we can talk. We can do FaceTime, we can do Skype, because I really want to get to the crux of what it is that you need help with your character specifically. But in general, I'm going to talk about how to develop your characters. And it'll be really quick. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to get pen and paper so you can take notes. And the first thing that you want to do is know who your main character is. Your main character is the drive for the entire story. So you need to know your main character inside and out, their backstory, what motivates them, what makes them tick, what their passions are. And the first thing you can do to find that out is to develop the character questionnaire. So the questions in the character questionnaire dig into their personal life. For example, what is the relationship that your character has with their father? What is the relationship that your main character has with their mom? Are there certain memories or certain incidents in their childhood that have triggered certain passions or certain reasons for doing things? For example, right now I'm currently writing a rom-com, which I actually finished, and I'm moving into the rewrite stage. And my main character is an African-American woman, originally from the East Coast, who lives in Los Angeles. Now, her drive for creating her matchmaking company stemmed from a bad relationship. She married a man who she loved and wound up, the relationship went sour and ended in a divorce, a very ugly divorce. And that was her drive for creating her matchmaking company. So the questions that you're asking your character are questions that inform the story. So I asked my character, what was her relationship with her father? Because her relationships with her men in her life are reflective of her relationship with her father. And so there is a 50-question questionnaire that I will be emailing to you, but you will have to ask me for it because there are 40 of you. So you have my email. If you are looking to develop your characters, please do email and say, yes, send me the free character interview. Now, some of the other interview questions relate to religion, to their beliefs, to their relationship with their higher power, and that will also inform their relationships with the other characters in the story. Another question, realm of questions relates to hobbies and passions and the things that they do, the type of career that they choose, and that will inform their actions with regard to the choices that they make professionally in your story. So all of the interview questions have specific reasons for them being important questions and how they inform your story. So the first thing you want to do is interview your characters. Once you've completed your 50-question questionnaire, you will know your characters inside and out, and then you can proceed to interview their arc. You can proceed to outline their arc. So outlining a character arc involves 2 things. It involves understanding where your story is going to end up, So you need to know how you want your story to end. Are they going to end up as a winner, accomplishing their goal? Or are they going to end up not as a loser, but as a winner, accomplishing a different goal that they did not intend to accomplish, but you as the writer know that that was the goal that they needed to accomplish? And that gets a little tricky because your main character's first goal is what they want to accomplish. So for example, my main character's goal is that she wants to land this big, high power, 6-figure client and match him successfully and marry him off so that he can be her 200th client, and then she can get more clients based upon that. So that's her goal. But maybe that's not what she's going to accomplish. She's not going to get that goal. In my story, she's not. In your story, your main character may get their goal. Their goal may be to graduate from college, or their goal may be to arrive at the end of their road trip, because if you're writing a road trip movie, the goal is to arrive at their destination. So those are goals that they end up as a winner. However, there is another underlying goal that they need to accomplish that you as a writer tie into that goal. So know what your ultimate goals are before you get started. So know your end before you begin. Then, once you know your ending, you can outline how that character is going to arc. They're going to start at point A, then end up at point Z. Z is their goal. In between all those different beats are different ways that your character has to either get over an obstacle or learn something about himself or herself, or there's some action that has to take place that will alter their trajectory or change their mind about something, but it's a process. And every character has to arc. That means that they're not going to end up the same way that they started. So there's a process. Between A and Z, all those different things that happen, you're going to outline them. So that's your outline for your character arc. Then once you have your character arc outlined, you'll know where you're ending up, and then you can start outlining your actual script. Now, the third thing that you can do to develop your characters is to rewrite. And you're not going to get to that stage until once you've completed your first draft, but that's something that you have to keep in mind. That's an end that you have to keep in sight. Now, while you're writing, keep in mind while you're writing dialogue that you want your dialogue for your character to be distinctive, because that gives clues as to who they are as a person. You also want to make sure that their dialogue is reflective of their background. You want to stay authentic to that character. And you also want to make sure that you're aware of their voice. The character voice must be consistent. So for example, if your main character is brave and fearless whenever he or she interacts with adversaries, then that is a consistency that you must maintain throughout the entire script. You don't want to have any incidents where your character is afraid of something or is intimidated by something. However, if the ultimate goal is that they learn humility, that's something that you plug in between A and Z, those different beats, those different challenges that your character has to face. And then ultimately, if that is your goal at the end, that they've gained humility, that goes back to the arc. You know exactly where they're going. You know exactly what you want them to do. And then the process of getting them there is the next thing I want to talk about. And that is developing the story. So once you've outlined the character arc, you can start outlining the story. Now, I'm going to give you a few minutes to pause, think about what I've just said, take down some notes, and I'm going to go and do a little recap. So, 3 things. A, character interview. Ask questions about your character's background, about their personality, about their relationships, and about their choices in the past and how that fuels their choices in the future. That's your character interview. B, outline the character arc. How do you want your character to start off? A, and how do you want your character to end? Z, know your ending before you begin. Then plug in those A, B, C, D, all the way through Z, those things, those events, those challenges, obstacles that your character must endure and face before they get to Z. That's your outline for your character arc. And lastly, rewrite, especially dialogue, to make your character's voice distinctive and so that your character stands out and is authentic. And those are your quick and dirty tips for layered characters. Now, with character development, there's a lot more that goes into it. And like I said, you're going to need a lot more feedback specifically to your script, to your project. And I've left time at the end of this live stream so that we can do that here. And I'm giving you opportunity to interact and chat at the end so we can talk about specifics. So I'm going to move on to story because that's the next thing. So based on your interviews, most of you would like help with building action and utilizing specific story devices that are particular to your genre. Now, one of the things that you need to know is your genre. So let's say you're writing a rom-com like me. There are certain story devices that are very particular to that genre that help move the story along, that not only your audience are looking for, subconsciously looking for, but also you as a storyteller are going to naturally come across those beats because of the kind of story that you're telling. So you really need to know the kind of story that you're telling inside and out so that when you come to those different beats in the story where things are expected from your audience, you're going to know where to plug them and you're going to be more aware of what you're doing. I want you to be a more purposeful writer. I don't want you to just write willy-nilly. Oh, this sounds great. This seems like a great idea to plug here. I want you to be more purposeful with those things, and that's where story elements come into play. So the most important thing with that, writing purposefully, is knowing your genre. So if you're not familiar with rom-coms and you're writing a rom-com, get familiar. Read more rom-coms. Read more romantic comedies. Watch them. Watch them on Netflix. You can, however you get the films or the projects, watch them. I do have several scripts that I can share with you that are public domain, that are some of my favorites because they're very well written. And one rom-com that I do have beat sheets for and in-depth analysis is The Silver Linings Playbook, which is one of my favorites, starring Jennifer Lawrence and that other guy, Bradley Cooper. But getting back on track, if you don't know your genre, then you need to go and find out more about it. So I do have some genre cheat sheets that I can give you that actually given one in our CYOC group. If you are in the group, go to documents and you'll find one of them. But I have several that I want to share with you, but I need you to specifically tell me what genre you're working on so you can email me that, and then I will email you the cheat sheet for that genre. So story elements, those are very important to understand before you even start writing. And then there are specific story devices that you can use that work. And some of them work best for certain genres. So that being said, I'm going to go over a few story devices and story elements, and I'm actually going to give you some examples. But before we start, I want to show you the book that I created for CYOC includes this. And I will share this with everyone in the group. This is a little beat sheet. It's visual. And it's based on Blake Snyder's beat sheet, which I swear by because it's really great. It's very organized and it's very detailed. And I'm going to share that with you. And it helps you pace out, and it also helps you plug in specific story elements at specific beats of your story, which I believe is really awesome because, like I said, you're writing with purpose. You know exactly where those beats are. You know exactly what you want to do with the action, and I can help you plug those in there. But so here is the list of the specific beats that you want to include in your outline. Because before you even start drafting, I swear by outlining. I know some writers may not like or find outlining to be tedious, but like I said, I'm a proponent of writing with purpose. So if you know exactly what you're about to write and you have a plan in your mind, it's a lot easier for you to let the creative juices flow because you're not stressed out about, am I hitting that beat? Am I making sure that I include this element? So I will go over the list. The beat sheet is really cool. And the book is called Save the Cat. So the specific beats that you want to make sure you include in your story outline are as follows. Your opening image. That's number 1. Number 2, your theme. Number 3, your setup. Number 4, your catalyst. I'm going to go over specifically what they are and when I'm done. Number 5, the debate. Number 6, your break into 2. 7, your B story. 8, fun and games. 9, your midpoint. That's your halfway point in the story. 10, the bad guys close in. 11, all is lost. 12, dark night of the soul. 13, break into 3. 14, your finale, your grand finale, and 15 is your final image. So if you notice, you have bookends. You have your opening image and your final image. And those are 15 beats. And I know you're thinking, yeah, 15 beats, that's a little bit. That's true, because these are your major beats. You're also going to have some little teeny tiny beats in between. They're dramatic points in the story. They're not your push the story forward beats. They push your story forward, but not in such a way that shifts the story the way these beats do. And if you start with these 15, that's your skeleton of your story. And then you can add the layers. You can add the flesh as you go along. So let's go through each one. Your opening image is how you start off. This is where we meet your character. You have to meet your main character in the beginning, first off, in her element or in his element. And this is how we get to see him at point A. Remember your arc. You're starting off, your character is this baseline. This is who she is or he is in their world. Nothing has changed. Now, fast forward to number 15, your final image. That's your Z mark. When you've outlined your arc, that's how you want your character to end. You're going to be a little bit different, but they are mirror images. So meaning the bookends are A is going to be unchanged. Me, my status quo, I'm the main character. This is me in my world and I think everything's great. But Z, your final image is, hey, this is me. I'm still me, but I'm me 2.0 or me to the 10th power. And I've changed. I've learned something about myself and I'm either happier or smarter or I've reached my goal or I'm on my way to something greater than how I started in A. That's important because that's the satisfaction that your audience feels that your main character has accomplished a goal. And that goes into stories and why we watch stories and why we listen to stories. And it's a cathartic experience. You as an audience member, you're taking this journey with this main character. So you are at the status quo at the opening image. That's you. You're going to be different at the end of the story. You as the audience are going to be changed just as much as your main character is. So this is important. This is the organic connection between you as the storyteller and you as the audience member. And so let's move into story elements. I have a section in the book dedicated totally to plot where you learn more about how action and activity fuel the story along, but they're also connected to your main character. And so the bulk of the screenplay is going to be your descriptions and your action and how your main character is moving through those B through Y moments in your story. So this is the part where you outline your story. You know your script is 3 acts. Some people say it's Act 1, Act 2, A, Act 2, B, and Act C. I'm sorry, Act 3. So you're not going to have one of those sagging middles. Some writers do that. But your second act is still your second act. So even if you've broken your second act into 2, you're still going to have a major chunk of action in the middle, which is your B through Y. So let's talk about that. So when you have a story, and let's say we're talking rom-com, and you've got this action that's fueling your main character toward this goal, there are basic elements of the story that need to be that need to satisfy your audience. to keep your audience wanting to know what's going to happen next, to keep them invested, to keep them in the seats, to keep them reading. The first thing is your inciting incident. So yes, your character starts at the status quo. That's where they are, but that catalyst, that thing that pushes them forward out of that status quo, that disrupts their equilibrium, that's your inciting incident. So maybe it's this new man that walks into your main character's life that she didn't plan on falling in love with. Or maybe it's a sudden death in the family that your main character just, this person is the crux of their life, and now they don't know what to do with their life because this person has died. So these are examples of your inciting incident. Or it could be, let's say your main character's goal is that they're graduating from college. So maybe they get their letter stating, oh, you've been accepted to XYZ college. This is their inciting incident that fuels them to go to seek out their goal. So these are examples of inciting incident. And that's something that you definitely want to think very heavily on, because it has to be very authentic and it has to be believable and enough to push your character to change, to move out of that status quo. Then once that happens, there has to be a debate. That goes back to that beat sheet. Is your character going to act on this incident? Which way are they going to move? Are they going to go or are they going to stay? What's going to happen? That debate is very important, because that lets us know that the main character is in charge of his or her own story. Now, if something happens, the incident happens, and the main character doesn't make a choice, then you've already killed your story a little bit, because now you have a passive main character, and that's not something that most audiences invest in. Your character has to make a choice. So make a choice. Based on this inciting incident, what are they going to do? Once they've made their decision, the debate is over, then we've got to lock in. What are we going to do? What's the plan? The main character lets us, the audience, know that they've made a decision, and now they must act on this plan. So once that happens, they've reached a certain stage in the story, the first culmination. We're at a plateau. Now what? Then the main character has to make a choice. Am I going to move forward? What's my next move? And oftentimes this is the part where you as the writer give them another hurdle to climb, to jump over. Now, this reminds me of a quote I have repeating in my head, where when you're writing a story, you are going to put your main character in trouble. You're going to put your main character in a tree. And this is the point where they're stuck in the tree. Now what do? Do they climb out? What's going to happen next? Well, then you got to throw rocks at them. That's the next thing. There's a twist in the story. What challenge, what obstacle must they overcome? So then you're throwing rocks at them now at this point. So they're blocking the rocks. They've made more choices. They've moved forward. The story is moving along. You as an audience, you're invested. The story is really trucking along. So now what? We've reached another point where they have to make a decision. You as a writer have to do something else. Now you're giving them more challenges. Now you set the tree on fire. What are they going to do? Hey, this is the part where your character's most challenged, and they're at that point where they push toward the third act, where they're going to ultimately reach their goal. So we're at the beat sheet. They've passed the catalyst, which is your inciting incident. They've passed the debate. You've broken into two. We know where we're going. You've thrown rocks at them. They've figured out how to block the rocks. That's your fun and games. They've proven their merit. You know who these characters are. They've made their choices. You're at the midpoint now. You set the tree on fire. Now what? The bad guys are closing in. Then you realize, as the main character realizes, oh shit, now what? All is lost. This is the part where your main character has to pull from themselves. Dig deep. This is where you know your main character inside and out, because you've already done your interview. You know how they're going to respond. This is the finale where they push to the grand goal. They've escaped the rocks. They've put out the fire. Now they have to escape the tree. You either have them jump or climb. Either way, they've accomplished their goal, and now you're at the end. The finale. What has your character learned? What have they accomplished? What is their ultimate takeaway? And you as the audience have to feel that as well. So I've taken you through the beat sheet really fast. I've taken you through some plot points really fast. And if you know your specific genre, there are certain elements that you can plug into those plot points, those specific dramatic beats. And based on what you know about your main character, you can layer those events using their merits, using their talents, using their bravery or their smarts, however you get them out of trouble. Then you've come to the end where they've accomplished their goal. So that was really a rough way of going through your story. Now, I do have a very in-depth story questionnaire that I use before I even start my first draft, because you've outlined it based on your beats. You have your beats that you want to hit. You know who your main character is. Now is the time for you to create a real outline. So you need to know what your story is all about. So you answer, I have 100 questions. I know it's a lot. You don't have to answer all of them, but if you're like me, you're an overachiever, you answer all of them. So I will be sharing the story questionnaire with you. Like I said, again, email me if you want this story questionnaire. And if you know what your genre is, let me know in the email what your genre is. And I will send you the beat sheet, cheat sheet, and the story questionnaire along with the character interview. So let's move toward the story elements, because based on your interview, you told me that you want to learn how to build action, you want to learn how to layer your characters, and you want to use specific story devices to tighten up your script and make it even better, to make it even more fun to read, so that when you are watching it, it's even more fun. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about some specific story devices. And I want to share with you 2 books that I use myself that you can use as a reference. One is called Something Startling Happens. And this is really chock full of different questions that you can ask yourself while you're writing. But it also gives you some specific tips on specific story devices. For example, the Grim Reaper is a story device that you can use if you're writing a story that includes suspense. The Grim Reaper is usually a symbol of death. It's not necessarily a specific character. It could be a story element such as a skull that symbolizes death, or it could be a shark. Like, for example, if you're watching Jaws, it could be, like, for example, in Match Point, the reference to death in that was when Lieutenant Dan makes fun of Forrest's dream of running a shrimp boat and then somebody dies. So the death is the death of his dream, actually. But there are other stronger death cases. For example, if you saw, what's the movie with John McClane? What's the guy? Bruce Willis, yes. The movie with, yeah, but there was a movie, damn it, the name of the movie just escaped me, where he was dead. He was actually the death. Sixth Sense, thank you. So he was actually the death element in that story, and you don't find out until the end. And so anyways, those are certain specific elements that you can include in your story specific to genre. And you can find some of those elements in this book called Something Startling Happens. I have a specific list of story elements that you can use per genre that I will share with you, that I've outlined specific to, like, rom-coms, specific to thrillers, specific to action. So if you're writing a rom-com or a sci-fi, you're going to have different story devices that you can use at different parts of your script. And I can tell you specific story devices for your genre once I learn more about what genre you're writing. The second book that I'm going to recommend is called Your Screenplay Sucks and How to Make It Great. And I like this book because there are 100 things in there that I actually pull from once I finish my first draft and I analyze, did I do this at this point? Did I do that at this point? And there are specific story devices, again, that are listed in there that I've pulled out and I've made charts for that I use on my scripts that I can share with you. But you have to tell me what your specific script is, what your specific genre is, and I can give it to you directly. So, like I said, email me and we'll set up a time and I can give that to you. Now, the third thing that I wanted to talk about was the story outline. The story outline is very important because you can always go back to it once you've finished your first draft to check to make sure that you've hit those specific beats. Also, to check to see if you've included the story devices that you wanted to use, and if not, you can always go back and add them to your draft. Now, that leads me to rewriting. Rewriting is not just taking your script and changing dialogue or changing action. Rewriting is a very organic process where you're reading the script and usually out loud. So what I do before I do a rewrite is that I have a table read. So you want to read your script out loud, or you want to invite other actors to read your script out loud so that you can hear what's going on. You're not reading it, you're listening to it, and you're taking notes on the actual script. So if there's a specific piece of dialogue that stands out to you that doesn't sound natural, make a note of that. Once you get to those certain elements or those certain beats in your story that you feel are sagging and you hear it, when you hear it read out loud, you can make notes at those parts of the script and then go back to it. Once you finish hearing the whole script out loud and you've included all of your notes specifically on your draft, then you start rewriting. You start by going either onto your computer to your file and you have your hard copy with all your notes, and then you take those notes and you change it when you're typing. Or if you're like me, I handwrite all my scripts. You take your hard copy and then you just do a whole new hard copy. You just rewrite from fade in. That's just me. That's my process, but it may not work for you. So that was the basics of it all. I didn't want to take up too much time with the basics of it all because I want to actually get into your actual scripts, because I'm one of those writers that it's okay to give me like a checklist and I can always go back to that later, but I really need somebody to tell me I need feedback. So that's why I'm making myself available. So I'm opening up the chat. If you are here, there it is open. So you can go ahead and type in any of your questions. And if you are watching this later on the replay, you can still type in your questions because I'll leave the chat open and I will come back and check. Or you can email me specifically at hanixonpictures@gmail.com and tell me what your questions are, what your specific questions are. And if you do have a rough draft and you want to sit down with me and go through it, I'm making myself available to all 40 of you. Just let me know and I will schedule a time for you and I to go over your specific project, whether it's a screenplay, whether it's a web series that you're in pre-production for, whatever it is, because that's the whole purpose of this, is to make myself available to you with your specific project. So thank you so much for watching, if you're watching on the replay, and I'm very pleased to have all 40 of you, because my whole purpose for doing this is to help other people to write professional level screenplays, and I want you to be confident that your screenplay is tight and ready to be submitted to either a contest or to an agent or to a producer, or whether you're ready to produce it yourself. So, all right. I don't see any chat right now, so I'm going to take that to mean that you will directly email me, and I look forward to hearing from you. So that being said, please let me know what it is that you got from this, and if there are other questions that you may have that I did not address, please include that in your email as well, and we will talk about it one-on-one. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope you have a super day. Bye, guys.